changes, which we're going to do. We also looked at establishing a program like Goffstown this week, which Adam has already done. It was a very short meeting. I do have a copy if you want to look at that, but I'm looking for somebody to approve.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes.
Okay. A second?
I'll second.
Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, to approve 400, which kind of brings me into the next part. There's four of us here tonight. I'm not sure what time Mike's going to get here. But as you know, that was also part of the minutes about going before the board to get approval to amend the bylaws so that we have 5 members with 2 alternates, and also change the meeting time to quarterly or as needed. I went to the selectmen's meeting on the 22nd of May, made a presentation of why we should have that. Adam Jacobs, the town administrator, agreed with all of that, and it was fully approved by the Board of Selectmen. So now, we only need 3 people to have a quorum.
Oh, okay, that'll be good.
Well, that was one of the things we discussed, so that's been approved. So now we're going to roll into the coordinator's report, who has a bushel for us.
Yeah, I have a whole bunch of stuff, definitely, but I had a formal report, which I left at the office, of course, but I wanted to make it brief anyway. Just kind of touching on what we had done for the school year. We had 105 sports broadcasts from the beginning to end of the school year, which I believe 42 was our most that we had before that, so
More than doubled.
quite a bit. There's 150 home games, give or take, for Goffstown, so we had a majority, more than a majority of those, like 3/4 of the games were covered. But I think the more important and the bigger number is we had close to 40 volunteers working on those games, and 3 of them are here, actually, as a case would be. And I think it speaks volumes about the spirit of volunteerism in this community and what we can accomplish with, like those cameras. They were very key on what we did, the JVC cameras. And it was really neat to see it all come together. On our end, it was 90% less time that it took so 10% of the time it took to process the games because of the way the cameras shot it.
These are the new cameras.
With the new cameras. So it saved us time. We were able to do more. And I think people had a blast with it. We had some sports that we had never covered. We had swim, we had boys and girls lacrosse, all with play-by-play too, which is a huge thing. So it was really neat to see. We also did a live broadcast on Facebook for the 8th grade promotion and GHS graduation. We had about 400 people between the 2 of those watching live as we had it online. Yep. And we took out Maddie Carlson. I don't know if you guys are familiar.
Yep.
I know some of you are, definitely. She had Ewing sarcoma and was given a 30% chance of survival, and she graduated with her class, and she got the last word. And we took that speech and put it on Facebook, and I think we have like 16,000 views on that. It's the biggest video we've ever posted.
She's the
seemed to
girl
share
that
it.
recycled percussion also.
Yep, recycled percussion, and again, that same kind of spirit of giving and volunteerism, I think, in
I
this
think
town.
it's great. This
So-
town has a lot of it.
That's all I really wanted to talk about, because I know we have a lot of meat and potatoes to get to, so.
Not to diminish those numbers on that video, but how many did you have for that clap out, that first?
That was on YouTube.
Oh, YouTube, okay.
And that one was, I think, and that was on the Goffstown Education Channel. We posted it on our joint channel with the school district. I think that was like 26,000, something like that. But that was on ABC News,
Right.
which was pretty incredible too. So, yeah. This was all just Facebook. There was no news coverage of that one, which is
So bottom line is, we've come a long way, baby.
absolutely. Absolutely.
And I know from the 3 of us who are involved with the sports broadcast, we definitely enjoy doing it. We look forward to it.
We had people that were timid about starting. They wanted to help out because they wanted to see their kids' games on TV. Like spring sports, we had 5 sports that we covered. And a couple of the teams, they were kind of on the fence about doing it. I said, if you don't have play-by-play, you're not going to get priority over somebody who's going to go out there and do play-by-play on these. So they found people who were kind of reluctant. By the end of the season, they loved it. They thought it was fantastic. They had so much fun. And I think that's kind of cool to see that totally change, you know?
All right, moving on.
Brad, I had just one comment.
Okay, go- I'm sorry,
I
Scott.
just think we probably want to put it in the parking lot at some point when we're talking about budget development. I mean, I know that we worked on getting that second JVC camera, but now that there's so much interest and there's competition now for the equipment, and in some sports, you know, you're using one camera. Other sports, it does lend itself to multiple cameras, and I just
Yep.
think that the bang for the buck that we get out of that particular JVC camera, in terms of just no need to do any type of pretty much editing. It's just pretty much plug and play, and you're uploading for the most part. It may make sense to think about another camera
We-
down the road.
With our success here with that camera, I've talked with other access centers, and Nashua has one. I know Manchester was looking at it, Merrimack was looking at it. I don't know if Concord bought one or not. Bedford bought one, and Bedford hasn't used it yet. And we actually borrowed it from them on the one of the playoff days.
Right, right.
Because there were
We had
three
three
teams,
teams.
Right.
and I was like, what are we going to do? And of course, it rained out for the ones that were outdoors, so it worked out, but we had actually borrowed it from them to use it because, you know, what else? were
Yeah,
we
one
gonna
of the one of the dilemmas is when you're doing a sport, and whether it be baseball or softball, and you're using two different camera angles, and because we're using different cameras, when you go back to when you just see just a different picture, and it just
A different color.
the quality. I mean, if you remember last year,
Yeah.
we tried one with multiple cameras, and it just did not work.
Yes.
Looks like you're watching the HD, and then all of a sudden it looks like home
Yeah.
movies from the 70s.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah, what happened?
Is this the same game?
So anyway, I think it's Adam. I think you deserve a ton of credit. I think some of us have helped some people along the way and try to recruit people to do it. But I think ultimately, you've been the one who's really spearheaded it and given people the safety net, the comfort level of using the equipment and talking to them. And I don't know. I just think you deserve a lot of credit for pushing this and getting these events, whether it's a graduation or a sporting event, you're getting them on like within hours. And I think and you're getting them on YouTube. And I mean, I've gotten phone calls from people in the community that their relatives in Florida and California have watched these games, and they've been able to see their grandkids, or they were away on a business trip and they watched the game, and really meant a lot. So it's a big thing.
It's good, and I hear from the coaches, thank you for saying that. I hear from the coaches a lot where they talk to the other coaches from the other teams. The other teams are kind of jealous of it.
Yeah.
Well, they are.
They don't get to see that for their stuff,
Yeah.
which is great, you know? We have it, and it's a little feather in our cap, so it's good.
The other coaches and the other teams and the parents to come to watch the other teams, they like, you do all this?
Yeah.
Scott started that by saying when we go through budget development, I just wanted to point out, we don't go through budget development the way other departments do. We just receive a portion of funds from Comcast, and it's a static amount of money.
Yep.
And we have to decide how we're going to spend it. So we prioritize a camera, we spend it on that. Although, having said that, I think we bought one camera one year, and then the next camera
Yep.
the next year. And if we were to buy the next camera the next year,
Right.
that works really well when it comes to replacement.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely,
So-
because of the age of the
Right,
equipment.
you don't have to replace three cameras in
Right.
one year.
I'll second what Scott says about all the work that Adams does. But now we're gonna go back to Adam, because Adam has some ideas on changing policy.
Yeah,
Before we go into the aerial one,
Yeah, we have a couple of different things. I sent a copy of the policies and procedures. There's nothing really substantial about the changes I made in this. This is, I don't know, I don't want to say a first pass, but this would get us through for sure. It's basically going over some of the things that are just like, why is that here? What's going on with this? And if we don't want to change these when we don't. I won't read this whole thing, obviously. But section 2, right at the top is the first change. I did a line through and I did a different color So if you printed it out like I did at work here, we don't have a color copier, so it just kind of prints it slightly lighter than the dark one. But I just took out the first line because it was wordy and it just, I don't know. I could have done that to this whole thing, this first page where it's just, it goes on and on and on. Also, United Cable doesn't exist anymore. I think that's 2 generations old, in fact. Just put Comcast there. So that's the kind of thing that I did on this. Go ahead a couple of pages. You can stop me if there's any questions, too. Who may use GTV production equipment? So, a resident of Goffstown and/or Goffstown property taxpayer. I really struggled with why that was put in there in that exact wording.
Because they're probably thinking about maybe a business owner who does not.
How is a business going to use it? We're a non-commercial entity, so it's like, why was it?
I don't know. That's the only thing I could surmise was that you could have somebody who maybe is a local business owner who wanted to produce a show for their own personal interest, not per se the, I'll give you a great example, like the library. You can get a library card if you're not a resident of Goffstown, but yet you own a business or you work in
Work here.
Goffstown. So maybe it was the same type of thought. Was that?
Yes, it was.
I
So I'm
wasn't
thinking-
around when that was.
Since I was one of the ones
2006.
that did that, there were a lot of people who thought because they had a company and they thought they were part of Goffstown and they could tell Goffstown GTV what to do and what not to do. And we said, excuse me? And that's why we made it kind of clear that you have to be Goffstown.
Or,
Absolutely Goffstown.
can I speak?
Go ahead.
What?
Or it could imply that somebody owns land, just parcels of land, lots and stuff like that.
Right, but they
That's-
didn't do any living here.
Right,
Right,
they
they
just own the
didn't do
property.
any,
Right.
They pay
right.
property taxes and.
Well, I mean, it does go into the non-resident exceptions right below it, where it talks about how it has to be related to coverage of town-related
Right,
events
okay.
or, so we could keep it. I don't have any
Yeah, yeah.
problem with that. I
No,
just,
I mean, what you've done here is you take a look at something that's hasn't been looked at in 10 years or
Yep.
something?
at least.
I mean, you can
And come up with
adjust the
some ideas.
words, the wording and
I'm saying we
everything.
establish an ad hoc committee
You know what,
or
now that you have what you have below,
A
that probably
subcommittee.
does it.
to discuss the changes rather than doing it here at a meeting.
One other reason to have it is a business in town might be paying a large amount of money to have cable in their business, say Pizza Market, having 2 TVs. I don't know what they have to pay to have that for the
Right.
customers. They're paying
Sure.
GTV's fees.
But the way it's worded is a resident of Goffstown, and then right below, non-resident exceptions include Goffstown business owners.
Yeah, so it's there.
So it's there, it's just, I don't know, that Goffstown property taxpayer, just, it struck me as just something that's kind of odd. It seemed out of place to me, especially with the non-resident exception right below
I
it.
just think they put it in for a different meeting that's probably not needed right now, this time. So,
You
But
can,
let's not pick apart everything. These are only recommendations.
Okay.
We could be here until midnight going
Yes,
through.
if we.
right, but.
yeah.
That we, as a committee of some sort that we established, to take a look at it, make the ideas, and then maybe the full committee, not necessarily at a GTV meeting when we're on television, go through, and then once we have finished product, we can present it to the public.
When we made these rules, when we were doing this shuffling with these wordings, so any kind of wordings that pop up and make it sound better and make it clearer, when we were doing these, there were 3 of us there. And there were people who were absolutely business people. They only came in to work in their office and go home. And they were trying to do different things. I'm trying to think, I'm trying to think, was it a game or something that somebody was saying they had the right because they were a taxpayer?
Right.
And we said, no, you don't have the right. And we had a big fight. We went to the selectmen, and the selectmen said, no, they're right. You don't have the right. And then they worded it this way. And this way here, it makes it look like they can do it.
Right.
And so what I'm saying is if you have better ideas for doing that, go ahead and do it. Because it was a long time ago.
As I said, let's kind of move on and
Yeah.
just give a
We'll
brief
give the
synopsis.
20,000-foot view and
Yeah,
let
Yeah.
everybody sink it in.
Yeah.
On that same page, it said must be at least 18 years of age and able to provide a picture ID. I added, or a signed form from parents or legal guardian, because otherwise this would prohibit students from using
I
GTV.
understand.
Which,
The students have been
Suppose-
a great support.
I mean, this could be if who may use GTV production equipment, which isn't defined, if that's the studio, if that's what they're talking about, for the intent of making a show, then we could have different guidelines for that, but it doesn't distinguish that. It's just saying production equipment, which could be anything that we have. So it really, actually, the way it's worded, it prohibits anyone not 18.
Well, we know that the students have been an immense help on getting that
Right.
105
Why
shows up there.
18?
The reason it was 18
Yeah.
was that some other people wanted to take out the camera, the few cameras that we
Yeah.
had, and thought they had the right to it because they were GTV and they were school students. And they were students last year. They graduated, they're 18, they're still in Goffstown.
Well, it's
And
just
they
the
thought
legal
they could
status,
take
I
the
think.
camera for
Yeah,
the weekend.
I'm not so.
And not even for GTV use afterwards.
Right.
You know, for what they were doing. They were just taking it for them to do what they wanted to do
There
with
are
it.
other
And
rules
we
that
thought,
cover that.
no.
Already. There are
Right.
already rules that say you have to be borrowing it to do
To be
something
used for
for
television.
GTV.
Broadcast,
Right.
yep.
So that's already covered.
Yeah, I just question the 18 part.
Yeah.
And I say that,
The only reason we did is those mostly were the people that were doing it and the students that were doing it. And anybody younger didn't have, what do you call it, legal problems with doing it. But 18 does have a legal problem. If they take the camera out of town, you know, they wanted it for their use.
I think it
And
just comes
so
back to they
that's
can't
right.
legally sign for something until they're 18.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Somebody's got to be responsible for expensive camera equipment.
Yeah.
They
If
sign a
that's where it-
document, like in court, and they took and sold it on eBay. I mean, obviously that's stealing or something, or just kept it or whatever, broke it. They're responsible for the equipment, but they could say, well, they're not 18, so they're not responsible for anything.
okay.
Okay.
I just want to make sure we don't discourage.
Moving on.
Right. I just changed the name of something else on that page too, because this is what we call it. Okay. Number 4, what resources are available from GTV? I just put a line through a contact list of volunteers willing to work on projects. I mean, it seems weird. We do have, I haven't used it as of late. I do have a Facebook group that I've included people in for volunteers, which I guess is kind of the same idea. So if there ever is somebody who needs volunteers for something, we could go to that route. The other one is the textbooks and other instructional materials available for checkout on a number of topics relating to community television, television production, film, and television studies, et cetera. So that would be called YouTube, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah,
I don't think we need to have a library
right.
stuff.
But this was written before YouTube and
Right, it was
Right.
written before any of that use.
Number 6, how do I become an intern? On-site supervision and training will be provided by the GTV coordinator. No, it will not. I mean, I can't be every single place. Somebody's gonna take out a camera to film an event, their event. And the way this is worded, I'm supposed to be there when they're filming it? That doesn't make any sense. Be kind of hard to do.
I would also change the word taping to recording, since that is
Yeah.
an outdated term.
Good idea.
Although taping, I think, is synonymous with it. It's not, you're not literally using tape anymore, but if you say you tape an event,
Yeah,
it's become-
I've been hearing a lot of that, and it's like, people record, you're recording something.
It's
you're not-
colloquial in conversation on a document, it stands
should
out.
be recorded.
Yeah.
I'm fine with it being
Yeah,
recorded.
right.
Number 7, I don't have, it didn't print out right. In fact, I went back and looked at it, and that part is kind of missing. Section 3, policies. I changed some of the wording of what the forms should be, and I also think that we should have something in here about how the policies, in the policies, we should have a copy of all the documents we're referring to, as like an addendum appendix or whatever.
Just as an aside, we bought Adam a copy of Office for Mac, and I don't think you have it installed yet.
No, I
I
don't.
think that'll solve all that formatting problem.
Probably, yeah, there are some weird issues with this. All patron requests for commercial use of the facility and/or equipment must be made directly to the committee. Just 100% get rid of that. No. We're not going to be a commercial entity for somebody's production stuff. That just is a lot of problems. On 2, programming, the committee employees of the town or members of the various boards will not exercise, that's, I think I added that part. The employees of the town and members of various boards will not exercise control over program content. Just to kind of make it clear that it's, I mean, I'm an employee of the town, but I'm not going to be controlling the programming content of what somebody is going to be producing. So, in other words, Scott comes in and wants to do a show, and he says, I want to say this about some political topic. I can't tell him no. I absolutely cannot. And neither can this cable committee, neither can anybody.
Does that in some way limit the Board of Selectmen's ability to authorize policy?
I think in a broader scope, it protects them from a potential lawsuit.
We just might have to look at wording to make sure
Okay.
that that's clear over whether or not they have the ability to set policy. Because they do.
Sure, yeah.
The person speaking, okay, the person
We'll
that is
figure out the-
using it, no, the person that's using it, he said, one of the members take the camera and whatever, the person that was using it is just using it for them, wouldn't be changing our policy.
We'll figure out the wording to make sure
Yeah.
it's clear.
This is always a point of contention for me. Obscene or indecent material as defined by FCC guidelines, which is fine, except I struck it because cable is not under
CC
FCC
guidelines. Yeah.
guidelines. So it's weird that it's there. We could still say that, it's just that I wanted to point out that it's really not their jurisdiction. Might as well say FAA guidelines, you know?
Okay.
FCC.
Both of them.
A couple of pages from that. The political solicitations for or against particular candidates and blah, 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 it got so wordy, and it could have been said much clearer, which is replace it with political solicitations of any kind are not allowed on the bulletin board that airs on the channels. And I think that's common sense.
Yes.
If you want to produce a political show, fantastic, we have a great avenue for that. But if you wanted to do a political billboard, we're not going to be a party to that, so. But that's what that said, it just did not say it clearly. I had to read it like 3 or 4 times before I realized, oh, it's just the bulletin board they're talking about, so. So going to, let's see, this is on the next part, which I think this is, I don't know if this is policies or procedures. There's actually 2 different documents that we have, which is another thing.
So you're on GTV
I have
personnel?
GTV personnel.
Yeah, that's.
You're gonna change the committee member, that's now 5.
Committee members have changed.
Right, so the committee members, that's gonna have to
Two.
change. Duties and responsibilities, the committee will present and expend an annual budget, which, that's actually changed. The town policy is different already, so it conflicts with what the town policy is. Educational supervisor, governmental supervisor, there
Can
there
I ask
really
a
isn't one.
question here?
Yeah,
The second sentence, no full-time school employee, SAU employee, town employee, or elected officials are eligible for this committee except in the capacity of advisory member. Why?
I think that's pretty
I think that's,
close to every single board in
Yeah.
town.
But there's statutory reasons for that. Here, there isn't.
we didn't write it down because all it was a rule that we already knew everybody did.
I don't know the answer.
I mean, okay, you have a
I-
teacher in the school district, why could they not be on this committee?
Our former.
They can be
Chairs.
as advocate, yeah, but not, they remember,
Because of what?
Because it was a conflict with our.
He took a job as a teacher, so he
Yeah,
had to
I
leave
don't,
the
I don't
committee.
get this. Doesn't make no sense to me.
I think-
Selectmen, yes, I'll give you that, because they oversee it, I'll give you that, but even if there was a school board member, it's like, who cares?
we do.
I don't.
I
Well,
think,
it's- all right, there's 2 of us, we just,
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
at the time, there were employees of the town boards that were trying to do different things, and that's why we made sure the
think
rule
bef-
was there.
Predating 2006 even, there was
Right.
a worry that the school was going to take it over, or this other entity was going to take it over. So there's kind of like a little bit of underlying paranoia.
Right.
in that
However, the Board of Selectmen are the people that are responsible to appoint the people on this committee. If they feel it's an issue, then they don't have to
Then they
appoint
would
the
take it.
person.
Kind
I
of goes
just
back
don't-
to what he said, yeah.
No, so I don't get the point. I mean, I just think it's horrible that, so we lost, I didn't know that. So we lost somebody.
We lost the
because-
chair.
We lost the chairman of this committee because they wanted to be a teacher, and it just doesn't make sense to me.
Is this something we should look at a little more closely when we have a,
Yeah.
It's
Full
hard to get
discussion.
volunteers in our community, and then you're saying, oh, by the way, if you're a custodian at a school, you can't do it, or if you're,
Right.
or, I just, I
Right.
don't get that.
Right.
All right.
When it was written, this
Yes.
committee had a lot more influence over spending of the budget, which it doesn't so much now. Now it's more the coordinator's decision, and you guys kind of approve of the direction the committee's headed, not individual purchases. But before, every purchase that the former coordinator made, he got approval of his committee. And I don't know if that's why they didn't want employees, but that's really not the case anymore.
No, the
Right.
reason they didn't want employees is because some of the employees, because there were just, no, never mind. The fact is that there was a problem with the coordinator and a lot of the board members that were members of other boards.
The thing
And so-
that I think we need to ask you is, could you check with, whatever, the municipal association? I say that because personally, I think that's illegal.
I don't know about illegal, but I already wrote down, ask what the conflict is, or
Yeah.
if there's a
Well,
conflict.
no, the reason
I'll-
why I say that is that somebody could say, like I said, I am a paraprofessional of the Goffstown School District, and because of that, I am not allowed to be part of a committee, meaning that I could serve on, as a member, you can serve as a member of the Budget Committee, you can be a select, you can do all those things, but there's no statutory
GTV.
reason to say no.
But not
But yet,
GTV.
you can't be on the GTV
It's-
committee.
It's
The
bizarre.
reason-
I just
We're
think
being
you gotta follow the
recorded.
law.
That's an
We're being
excellent point.
recorded, so I'm not going to repeat things. But
something we need to look at?
Yeah.
you might have change of ideas now from what we were going through at that time.
We said, well, 2006, so that's 11
It was
11
before
years ago.
2006.
For the educational supervisor, governmental supervisor, those don't really,
Do they
exist.
exist?
I mean, that's,
So does that get crossed out then?
I don't know what to do with it. I didn't do anything with it because it's there. Like, they're responsible from 7 AM to 2:30 PM for the educational supervisor. I mean, I don't know.
I don't think those exist anymore, and I
They
think it's
really
now it's the
don't.
coordinator's responsibility to do
What
those.
happened was, we had that center of the room.
Yep,
And we only had
Yeah.
access to
I remember that.
the
The detention room is
computers
what
and
it was.
things, right, was detention. And half the time, the detention teacher wasn't even there.
Yes.
And, anyway,
It
that's,
was written to cover a specific situation that
right.
doesn't exist.
That no longer exists.
That was really the end of what I had
All related to.
touched on. The rest of the grievance policies, somebody spent a lot of time making these. I'm not really sure where to start with them, so I didn't, basically. So,
Well, there were a lot of different grievances at that point, like I said, about the school and the,
right,
yeah.
Nobody really understand, or understood where it was going, that it was gonna develop to what it is today.
Right, right.
So I think everybody's trying to protect a little,
Oh, yeah. that's
yeah,
what that
everyone was protecting their
CYA
corner.
everywhere.
So that's the 20,000-foot view of the policies. I think that was an excellent point about that.
all right, well, what I'd like to do is sometime get together, or maybe make a suggestion now that a couple of us get together with Adam, and again, take a look at it, and then present it to the full board.
Yeah.
Oh, you,
Well, no, I'm just,
I'm willing to sit down and
Yes,
My question is, I guess my other real question is, once we do that, do we need to go to the selectmen first?
You
We should-
would vote to send it to
To
the
the
selectmen for
selectmen.
Thank you.
approval.
That was,
And they had no problem with the other changes that we made. It was logical. They did discuss it, but,
I know, I was there.
well, I was telling
Oh.
the viewers and the rest of the people who weren't there.
Okay,
I just want to ask you a question. So, in many people's worlds, a document like this would be on, like, hypothetically, a Google Drive, and you could see it, you could make comments, here's what a proposed change. Do we have any of that
We
capability?
cannot do that. It's against the law. We're a public
Public,
committee.
you don't have,
and-
because you don't have the
Be a quorum.
license.
Right.
And if we had quote-unquote like a.
That would be holding an online
SharePoint,
meeting.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Open meetings law.
In private, that would work great.
Yeah.
It would also work if, for instance, we had two people and me doing that, because that wouldn't be a quorum, correct?
Right.
that is right, too.
Yeah, although we're not looking for loopholes, we're trying to do what Brad said. If two of you
Right.
sit down together, hammer something out, and then present it to the rest of the committee.
Right.
Great. And you can bounce it off me to answer administrative questions like these that I'll try to find answers to.
Do we want to come up with a couple of people to work with you right now, or hate to show up, put anything off, but I'm willing to work with you,
Okay, great.
I'd do it too.
all right? We'll just come to a time that we'll do it after a softball game or after a football game.
My whole thing is that I think it's really important, though, that everybody has a voice here, so that,
Oh, yeah,
how do I put it? Like, so Barbara, if you've got issues, right, can you get with
Yeah.
Brad or myself, so at least
Yeah.
we know what your issues are?
I think it's good for Barbara because she's
Just
kind
the
of our
institutional
historian.
knowledge, right.
It's one of the reasons that people think government moves slowly, is you guys put together something at our next meeting, Barbara can have her say on it. But if Barbara's having her say on it in between the next meeting, then all of a sudden, you've got a quorum of people working on it,
Yeah.
and then you're breaking
Yeah.
the rules.
Now, yeah, it's good. Now, all of a sudden, it's can become listed as a meeting.
You guys hammer it out
Yeah.
and send it to all of us, and then at the next meeting, we can discuss whether we
That
want
sounds
to
great.
send it to the selectmen as is, or whether there's more changes to be made.
All right, the next thing I think Adam has is an idea on eventually purchasing or establishing a drone policy,
Yes.
probably before we purchase. Again, this would have to be approved by us and then forward it to the selectmen.
So I have, I don't know if everybody has one or not, there's a couple more here. Something I had drafted up, if anybody needs it.
Nope. I didn't get one, so that's okay.
Basically, this would be a very simple drone use policy. There's 3 paragraphs here, and there's only 3 paragraphs because that middle one is the only one I think that's really necessarily in question, which is, use of this drone is only available to Goffstown TV employees who hold the proper FAA certification for commercial UAS use. That's what they call it. Unmanned, like aerial, something, I can't remember the part. It's Part 107 of the FAA. They now have jurisdiction over it. And we've been looking into it, and we don't know, I know Neil and I have talked with the town administrator. What route do we want to go? Do we want to go, there's 2 of them you can do. You could do the Part 107 where you license people individually, or you could do a COA where you blanket the whole town for coverage of use of a drone. So there's benefits and probably downsides to both ways of doing it. We could also do both. But do we want to tie ourselves into that in our policy, or do we want to keep it more broad?
I think the important thing, I mean, this is like ever-evolving drone. So like the FAA was hot to trot. You know, first it was you needed a pilot's license,
Yeah.
believe it or not. Then it was a certification, which means that you have, you know, how do I put this? You're adhering to all the different criteria. It has to be in a sight line distance. You can't do this. There's a whole host of things.
Right.
Then I've been hearing recently that there is so many of these things that, they were trying to do it for like purposes of hobbies and you'd have to register
Register
it.
it.
Now they're kind of backing off on that a little bit. But I think for us, it's more a commercial, right? Because we're a government entity. I think we have to fall within the safer side of this in terms of going.
So the timeline to that
Liability-wise, yeah.
is the FAA kind of, actually, Obama administration, they put a presidential, what do you call that?
Executive order?
Executive order.
Yeah.
That basically gave the FAA jurisdiction below 400 feet, which they didn't before.
Right.
So that covers drones, and that was why. And to use it commercially, you had to have a pilot's license. And then they have this Part 107, which came out, which just rolled out, I think, a year ago.
Here we go.
Where you go take a written test, and you pass the written test, and you have a pilot's license for Part 107, which is for drone use, for commercial use. And I went back and forth, like, are we a commercial entity, considering we're not really? Well, there was a specific case of this guy in Florida he had had a drone, took footage, posted it on YouTube, didn't do anything, didn't monetize the video, just had it on YouTube. And the FAA actually went after him. And I don't know if they're trying to make a point through him or what, and said, you can't do that because it's commercial. And he said, I didn't monetize it. They said, YouTube is a commercial entity, therefore, that was for commercial purposes. So to err on the side of caution, we should probably think of it in those terms where we should be looking at it as though we were a commercial entity, even though we're not.
The other thing that kind of strikes me here, though, is that, use of the drone is only available to GTV employees. I don't necessarily agree with that. And I think that if you have people who have a drone operator license, et cetera, I think there has to be something that is.
Becomes becomes a liability issue.
I understand that, but the whole issue is about the training and things. I mean, I'm just trying to look at it from the perspective of, you mean to tell me that if, let's just say, we'll use Neil as an example. Neil is not a GTV employee, technically, right? Or are you? You are his boss, but.
I am.
Okay, but let's just not, we'll use Adam Jacobs. He's a town administrator. He is not a GTV employee. However, or somebody might say, you know what, we're going to use this or Megan at DPW, we want to use it to show this project here. We're going to use this drone, and now it means that you are the one who has to do it. But if we had 4 or 5 employees of the town or other people that have so been designated that the town feels good about it, then why can't they fly the thing?
I have kind of gone back and forth on that. It could be town employees that are certified. I mean, I wouldn't have any problem
Right.
with that. It's just, it was laying it down to try and, we want to close it up because of the liability issues.
Yeah, I think it should be open to town, whether it be town or school district employees who are certified. I just think it'll be a better thing that we have more people that could potentially do it. And if they're willing to take the test and.
When you first said we're coming up with a town drone use policy, well, I have a question about that. Are we coming up with a GTV drone use policy?
Well, I think-
Or are we setting policy for the town? Because before long, the police department could have their own drone,
Right.
Public Works
Yeah.
could have their own drone. So are we trying to set a policy for the town or for the drone that GTV would have? And we might have to do both. We might have to do the initial one
Yeah.
and
And
then
then
tweak
revisit
it.
it, yeah.
And so all those things you're saying, we might add that later, but to start with, this might be a drone operated by GTV, and GTV could operate it for Public Works or for police, and then if they get a couple people who are trained, then we go back and
Change the policy.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think we start small.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't want to make it so broad that it's got some sort of weird loophole that we don't see,
One more, we checked with our town insurance policy, and we are covered for this, but we wouldn't necessarily be covered if GTV loaned it out to a resident of Goffstown who has their license and flew it and crashed it.
Maybe even a school district employee. I
Right.
don't know if that would be,
Right, because they had a different insurance policy, so we should probably start small and
Very
then
small.
broaden it as,
the other concerns that I wanted to make sure that we hit were how we were going to use the device, like why do we want one, And it's to capture aerial photography and video for the purposes of video for Goffstown TV and social media platforms. And then, what do we do with the footage? All video captured with this device will be retained and available for public inspection. I kept that as broad as possible. My initial thought is to just create a YouTube channel and put everything on it. Everything that we shoot in the drone goes on the YouTube channel, just the date of when we shot it, and that's it. But I'm not sure if I want to do that or not, but we have some flexibility out as to how we do that with this, because there are some very legitimate privacy concerns that people have, and we just want to make sure that we're operating with that in mind, and that's not what we're trying to do at all. There's, obviously, we're in a state that's two-party consent recording, so obviously, we're exempt here, but if I'm having a conversation with Alan and I tape him, again, record him with an audio recorder, and he doesn't know it, he can sue me, because you have to have two-party consent. So audio is a big thing. I don't think it matters with a drone, because you can't hear anything if you've ever seen footage from a drone. All you can hear are the
Whirring.
thing spin, and it's
Whirling,
also 400 feet in the air. But, so those sort of things we obviously thought about as we took a look at this and crafted this.
So if that's the case, then what you're trying to say is that this is specific to GTV, and there are people who have concerns about enforcing land use things or surveillance, right? That's the other term.
There's even whole states trying to limit use of drones for emergency services.
Right.
Yeah.
Yet there are other states who are saying this is the best thing ever. We can
Right.
video an accident scene and recreate
Right.
it and
Yeah,
determine,
yeah.
So there's pros and cons, and our committee's not going to fight those out. We'll
Right, so
The
I think
last one.
semantically, I think we have to look at, like, as you said, like, at this time, the drone will not be used at the time of this, because I think it could change, like you said, down the road, and I think we're gonna see 10 years from now where it may be used by the police department or fire
the
department
laws
for
related to
forest
this
fires.
are going to continue to
Right.
change.
It's
Yeah.
evolving,
Oh, they're gonna
absolutely.
evolve, yeah.
We got to keep it as simple as we can,
Right.
because of
The-
that.
But you understand, like, the implications for a drone for emergency services are incredible. Like I said, if you have a fire on the mountain, you can send the drone up and you can quickly see, like, what's going on. It'll be a lot quicker. If you had a bridge that went out or something, you can quickly get an aerial view as to what's going on, how many people you have to dispatch to it. Or it's a big.
But do we, like you were saying before, do we craft this based on that potential use?
you don't,
Or
but-
do we
no.
wait for the fire department to get one and they?
I agree.
No, we did craft it for this. Do we need to further pursue this, or as it evolves, if we find that we are going to be able to purchase one? If it's gonna fall within, are we gonna
I
have the money?
believe we already have support from the town administrator.
Yep.
Okay,
That's not necessarily support from the selectmen.
I understand that.
But there isn't, we haven't run into opposition.
Okay, so,
So the big key is getting a policy, at least a good rough draft, and getting somebody to get their license. I don't think we
Right.
buy the drone until somebody has a
that's
license.
probably what my question was.
Right.
But I also
But
think that
then,
Oh, I like, I
But
love
then
the
we're-
concept, but.
I believe we're approved to buy one if, if.
But I think this is also for use for Goffstown TV, whereas we're talking emergency services, that's a whole separate issue.
That's why we're saying, let's leave that out.
And I think that
Right.
the last line, the drone can in no way be used in enforcement of any kind. For Goffstown TV, it never will.
Right.
That's not what we're gonna do. So, we could leave that. It changes 10 years from now and the police can use it, because actually, I think state law right now, you can't use it for police enforcement in any manner.
What I'm trying to say, though, is that this is a sticky subject because I can almost guarantee you that if there was I'm going to use a fire as a good example, and let's just say the fire chief said, you know what, this is a remote area, we can't, can we use Adam, can you do me a favor, get the drone, go up there and see what the deal is, because it's dangerous, the terrain, we just want to see if we have hot spots or something like that. So then it'd be like, I'm sorry, chief, our
think that's
policy.
enforcement, though.
What?
I don't think that would be a case of enforcement. We're not
That's
looking at to see if
safety.
somebody has a shed in their backyard.
When we
that's
got to
illegal.
that situation in our current setup,
Right.
it would just be up to Adam, is there anything in his FAA training that says he can or cannot go over the private property where the fire is? Does he need to get approval of the landowner before he flies? He just follow the rules and he can do it, as, up until now.
It's pretty exciting.
Yeah.
I think
I
it has a lot of good use.
Well, it has a lot of good use, I think it's.
Or maybe you just add that, the Goffstown TV employee will be governed by current FAA rules and regulations.
Right,
This
that's
way,
what that
Right.
middle
as things,
Yeah.
lines.
Okay.
The line about all video captured with this device will be retained and available. I'm partly responsible for putting that in there, but I don't like it at all. I think that's, you're talking data,
Yeah.
that, video takes up a lot of space.
But the YouTube thing makes sense to me.
We've got to hope that the New Hampshire State RSAs keep up with drones, because right now, anytime you do a flyover over the town, I believe the retention law says you have to keep that photography forever. So all aerial photography that you take as a municipality in the state of New Hampshire has to be kept forever, in perpetuity or whatever. So that's in there for now, but hopefully we can get rid of it. We just have to make sure we follow New Hampshire law. And
Okay.
if that qualifies, then we have to keep it. If that goes away, then we don't have to keep that video footage of it taking off or landing or, all
So
the
do we just
taking
change
up
the
data.
wording and retain,
To comply with New Hampshire RSA. Retention will
Right,
comply with,
yeah.
absolutely.
So when it
That's a
changes.
good-
There we go.
yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Now that we've kind of discussed that, and we all seem to agree that we definitely like the idea, but want to keep it basically GTV. Is there anything else that you have, Adam?
That's it?
All right. Moving on,
Are we giving Adam the blessing to proceed with getting his FAA drone license
107?
or certification? I say yes.
oh, well,
In the meantime,
do we need to have a?
I don't know that we need to, but you
don't?
might as well go
Okay.
ahead and have a vote.
Okay, well, I'll entertain a vote to,
Does he have it?
I don't.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I'll make a motion to
Well, wait a
authorize.
minute. Just out of curiosity, this is a nosy question.
He could make the motion, and then you could discuss the motion afterwards, would be the,
It has nothing to do with the motion.
Oh, okay.
It has to do with the idea of, you're going to go and get a license.
Yeah,
It costs money,
yeah,
and that's financed through us.
yeah.
To learn what what's the license is all about. That's what this is all about, why we are paying for learning, the education of.
Yeah, I don't think it is I mean, I happen to have done a project on this, so I'm kind of familiar with it. What he will be doing is not overly burdensome, or, I don't think it's more than $100 for this certification.
150 to
Okay,
take the
150,
test.
right, yeah,
You
so,
walk into the airport in
Yeah.
Manchester every Tuesday and Thursday.
Yeah.
You don't have to have a.
you have to walk in with the drone to prove that you can go, like, fly
no,
like a
no,
motorcycle.
it's
to a course?
just, have you read the FAA?
Wow,
It is.
wouldn't they
Yeah.
want you to make sure that you can control it so you don't crash
No.
it into
Yeah,
cars?
exactly.
They want to have a piece of paper that says you read as
That
much
you
as
read
you-
the policies.
Oh my
That
God.
you're liable.
Yeah.
You know, it's like a
You
motorcycle,
have
you'd
a
want
license.
somebody to know how to control the thing.
I would
just
agree,
like a
but that's
road
not
test,
part
That's
of
how
it.
it is right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
All it is did you pass the written test? It's not a practical of whether you can fly the thing.
Okay.
Then I can tell everybody I'm a pilot.
Yeah. Then he gets his Top Gun.
Yeah, yeah. Gets his wings.
all right, continue with your
So
motion.
my motion would be to authorize the GTV coordinator to obtain his drone certification. That would be FAA Part 107.
Do I hear a second?
Wait a minute, I got a question. You don't have to have any air experience?
No.
Have you flown one before?
Yes.
I just have, find that incredible.
It's not like driving a car.
Incredible.
It's much
Well, right
more
now, we got a
difficult.
motion on the floor with no second.
Yeah.
I'm looking for a second,
Well, I'll second.
Yeah.
okay?
Well, just to
I'll
speak-
Now,
just to
now you
speak
can
to
have
that.
discussion.
So just to speak to it, I mean, there
Roger's
are
rules.
13-year-olds who do this. I'm not diminishing your capabilities.
I have one.
Yeah, okay.
It's, it's not a high level one, but after about an hour, you get a little more comfortable with it.
Yeah.
The ones that you'd probably be using for commercial use or for video coverage, you're gonna have the one, I'm sure, with the iPad. A lot of it is autopilot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you
It
can
is.
set this thing so that you get it up and out 4 miles away from your house. You press home on
It
the
comes
screen.
right, yeah.
It comes right back to you and it hovers 400 feet above you and you just bring it right down and you
can't
land it.
Bring it above 400 feet, most of them. They won't even allow it to go that
Right.
far.
But what I'm saying is you can bring it right back so it's at your standing point. I mean, the sophisticated, more expensive ones are amazing. I mean, they do a lot of the flying for you.
And what happens if the electronics fail and it just takes off? Because electronics do fail, batteries do degrade,
Then it would crash.
right? And what about that issue? Crashes?
Car crashes,
I was gonna say, what
Yeah, but-
about cars?
But there's insurance on
It's
cars.
insurance, we have
Town- The
insurance.
town has insurance
We
that
have
We
covers
have
the drone.
liability insurance. I
Liability
mean,
stuff.
The,
They
the
already
one that
have
we're
it.
looking at,
Now, is that an insurance that is each drone, or is it drones?
property insurance for the drone, and it's liability insurance for any
Damage.
damages that are caused by the drone
Sure.
and/or the negligence of the drone operator.
All right, every drone, everything has numbers. Will they have to have that number on that? Or is it just drone?
We're talking one
use?
drone, right?
Just drone use.
What I'm trying to say is we have one drone, there will be a serial number, there's a manufacturer and a serial number on that drone that'll be registered to the town of Goffstown. It'll be marked as a property of the town of Goffstown. God forbid something were to happen and it were to have a malfunction or operator error and it caused property damage, our insurance policy would pay the liability, the damages through a liability policy. These things are typically, I doubt we're gonna be spending more than $2,000 on this thing, that'll be my guess.
the one we're looking at is the DJI Mavic Pro, which is almost completely automated. And the kit's like
$1,200-ish.
$1,200.
Okay, so my point is that in that much, that's not exactly something that you're, too worried about. God forbid it does break, et cetera. Unless you don't put in a claim, because it's higher, it'll be not worth it for your deductible, and it is what it is. So it's really more of a liability issue, and the town, and
It's
it's
the
no
reason
different.
you have to get a license before.
Right.
you-
Okay,
Right.
let's go back to the motion that Scott put on, and that's to authorize Adam to take the required tests to be certified as a, was it 107, FAA Part 107 drone operator. We had a second by Alan. Now I need a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Abstaining? No? You're aye. All right.
You're abstaining
5-0-0.
why?
Saying no,
Huh? No.
saying and no, or whatever.
It'd be a 401.
401. All right.
Good
Now
luck.
that we beat that to death, Neil, you have the floor.
Good luck studying.
We have the financial report and then the town information. I guess you can combine them all into one.
Right. That,
Thank you.
one of each.
We get one of each, huh?
Yep. The GTV revolving fund, or they both say the same thing. No, the revenue one, I'll talk about first.
Revenue.
It's the one that
Gotcha.
says 140,000
Yep.
on it. We get money from Comcast quarterly. We estimated our budget at 140,000. We keep that conservative because we don't know what it is until the revenue comes in.
Gotcha.
The first quarter, we brought in almost 38,000, so that's good, because that would be close to 148, 149,000. So we'd have an extra 9,000, and we don't lose that money at the end of the year, it rolls over to the next year. Are there questions on that?
You're saying it's better to be conservative in our estimate as far as revenues from Comcast.
Right.
Okay.
We wouldn't want to estimate that we're going to get 140,000, only bring in 120,000,
Yeah.
and have spent 140 and be 20 in the hole. The selectmen wouldn't be very happy with us. But if we budget at 140 and we bring in 150, we don't lose the 10,000. It stays
Right,
in the
I got
GTV
you.
budget. Any other questions on that one?
Nope.
The second one, one way a lot of people look at this report is they look at the final column way to the right, typically below the employee wages and all that sort of part. And they look to see what percentage you've spent, which doesn't make a lot of sense because we're 6 months into the year and we haven't spent 50%. Well, that's because we don't even pass the budget till the middle of March. So really, we're about 2 months into this. And I also like to be conservative with spending to find out later in the year, are there any emergencies we have to spend? What are our big expenses going to be? So we've spent about 10% of our hardware and actually maybe even 30% 30% of our software, but that's just annual, small amounts of annual fees. That's $1,000.
But all.
So
all this-
most,
to say, all this money, although it looks like, a regular line item, but this is actually, the money comes from the Comcast. money.
correct.
Perfect.
The money comes from Comcast and gets divvied up this way.
Thank you.
So long story short, like employee development, $1,000, you're taking a test, that's employee development, I'm assuming, right?
We could,
What would you call that?
Certainly call it that.
And then my other question is, we talked about equipment, so we have about 14, almost 15,000 left in that line. If a drone was purchased, it would come out of that line. If another camera was purchased, it would come out of that line.
right.
Is there any other, I mean, I'm sure there's other things that you have
There's,
to deal with.
there's definitely, cameras in here
Yeah.
are security cameras.
Yeah.
We need to update them, we need to update across the hall, we may need to buy microphones.
What we
across the
really
hall.
need to do is
You need to
do
put a
a
microphone
complete
in there?
inventory of the GTV equipment and find out its replacement cost and its lifespan and its
Cycle
current
out.
age, and then figure out
Cycle.
how much are we gonna need to spend per year, and then look at that money and go, do we really have 15,000?
Yeah.
Or
Right.
is most of that accounted for and we really have 1,000? But we do have not only that 15,000, but the leftover money from last year and the year before, and a little bit of money from the original franchise agreement.
So that's actually not in here, what's
That
left
doesn't,
over.
yeah.
That doesn't show on here.
Oh, okay.
And I don't have a report that shows that.
Oh, it's like
but
having a bank account out there.
It's nice. And speaking of franchise agreement, that's my administrative side of my report, is ours runs out in April next year. So we are going to have to renegotiate with Comcast, and I have an email to myself to contact Brian Christensen, the government rep over at Comcast, to say, how do we get this started? The town administrator thought that Comcast is supposed to be contacting us to get the process started,
That won't happen.
and I don't think that's happened. I
But
believe if
he's
you-
right, but
If
they
you
won't.
don't renew, if you don't have a new franchise agreement, I believe the existing one continues at its current, whatever status, but
There's, I've talked with a bunch of the access centers that have just recently renegotiated theirs, and there's definitely some things we'll have to talk about what we want to do as a committee, as a cable operator, and see if what the selectmen are going to want to do too, because it ultimately goes to them too.
there's one thing I don't want to do, and I don't want to go to the selectmen and say, in this negotiation, we'd like an extra $100,000 from Comcast to be used to replace our equipment at GTV, and have them say, what equipment? How old is it?
Right.
When does it need to be replaced? And not have the answers. I have no problem whatsoever asking for it if we have that inventory and we say, look, we're gonna need some money to get to here, and this is exactly what we'll need, and that's why we want to negotiate for this. But if we don't have that data, then our old coordinator used to say, I need $50,000. And we say, what do you need it for?
What do we,
Be great to have.
Yeah.
when you say inventory, like, I mean, on my company, like, everything had a barcode, et cetera, like, in the town, I'm trying to, like, I know we inventory computers
Right.
and other things, but is there like a dollar threshold that we inventory?
In the grand scheme of the town, it's over $5,000. As
Really?
a fixed asset. Within IT, with the computers, we're trying to have an inventory of anything over $100. Not
Really?
like if you bought $100 worth of blank DVDs, you
Right.
wouldn't inventory that because each individual DVD is about 10 cents. But if we bought a $100 computer monitor, we inventory that. Because once you've got 50 monitors at $100 a piece, then you've got some money that you need to make sure you've got budgeted for replacement. Over at GTV, they've not only got a few cameras, but the cameras in here, these microphones, you know what these run for?
No, $200 a piece.
$200 a piece.
Headsets.
You've got all this equipment that we don't have an inventory of.
We have about, I'm going to say, a third to a half of it inventory,
Right.
because
And the big ticket
Inventory
items
started when I-
we have to do first. The broadcast server, the carousels, we have 2 of those, right? Or do we even have 3
yeah, we have
now?
2.
That type of equipment, the most expensive equipment we should start with. But then we also, the cameras in here, and if we replace these, they may go in there, but then we've got 2 sets of cameras here, we've got the cameras in the library, at the school, we've got
Yeah.
all those sports cameras, we've got the lighting equipment in the studio, you know, there's a fair amount of it.
Yeah.
And
It's a-
we've got to make sure we know what that is and what it would cost to replace it.
It's a big project, and I think last time I talked with Brian Ray in IT about it, we were talking about, because I would send him something for the inventory, and it would be all wrong for what he needs, but I don't know what he needs. I was suggesting that he come over, maybe with a laptop, and we can just like do it all in a day or something, but
Can you
he
get
has
Kevin
been
to help you with
straight
that this
out.
summer?
Well, that is a great question. Is there something like, when you look at like what Brian does, I personally would say no, because Brian is way more valuable. Is
Than
that
doing
something?
inventory for a day.
It's almost like an intern.
Exactly. It's like, why aren't we paying like a high school kid to
The-
work with you to do this?
Though you do have to get somebody the accurate value of,
Right.
you know, the replacement cost, and that's time consuming, and you can have a kid.
No, I guess what I'm trying to say is that while you're there and you're saying, okay, type in this, here's the serial number, and they're doing it, I mean, then you might have to go back, or somebody has to go back and say, okay, and you could put approximate cost and then verified cost, but you'll have to do the verified cost, or maybe the student does that, but I don't,
To get him started, I think we have to help him organize it. Say, okay, I want you to categorize it these ways, and I want you to have, you know, purchase date, if you have this information available.
Approximate,
You know, purchase date, you know, purchase cost, warranty, expected life,
Replacement.
Now, is it
replacement
better-
cost.
Here's my thing. Arguably, isn't it better to do like an access database on that? This way you can query like a whole host of things?
No,
No?
because how do you open an access database?
But you don't
You have
have,
to have access.
and you
It
don't.
only comes in Office Pro, which costs an extra $200 per person.
Okay, so you don't
So-
use that here.
I do.
You
but-
do, but then if he wanted to,
Right.
then it's $200 and. yeah.
Right, so what you do, the spreadsheet is gonna do everything they
Take
need.
care of most of that. You know-
Because then we can put it into a database of our asset management program.
So-
That's where you're going with that anyway. I think
Right,
we've
right.
got an asset management.
So along those lines, summer, generally at the studio, we see a downturn in people coming in. They go on
Right.
vacations and stuff. Dave is going to be leaving for Alaska for most of the summer, and we have Kevin coming in as his replacement. And I told him, we're going to have a big project for you. I don't know what it is yet, but it'll be a big project. I think this may be his big
Project. There
project
you
right
go.
there. To start
As
the
long
ball
as
rolling.
I can borrow them a couple of times. We kind of got off a little bit on, but with this is what it is.
75
Last-
pages.
Last franchise agreement, I got an email from Adam Jacobs saying he wasn't sure how far Sue had gone, but I guess probably not very far. And
As starting a new one,
Yeah.
he wasn't sure if Comcast had contacted her or not.
Okay, so-
And we don't think
I don't
they did.
So we need to start reaching out to them now.
I will reach out to them tomorrow. I have an email to myself to do that tomorrow.
Because that was under my notes here for action items. So it's an action item.
Last time, we had the town administrator, the assistant town administrator, who's now the finance director, myself. We had
Oh, yeah,
Jason
that's-
Cody, who's, as a Goffstown resident, was part of this negotiating committee, because we know he's got experience in,
He's still on the committee, you know.
yeah. And he is actually technically on, right?
Hmm?
He'd be a great resource if he was available. And then we had another local resident who was an attorney, though I don't think he's available anymore. I think he might have moved. Yeah,
Earl Carroll.
yeah.
Yeah.
Earl?
And so it would be helpful to have an attorney
Oh,
when
yeah.
you're going over this legalese, although when we're done, we do send it off to a town attorney.
Jim Raymond?
Possibly. So we've got to work on who that committee's going to be. Last time, we didn't have the GTV coordinator as part of the committee because I think it was right as he was leaving and before we hired Adam. So it might be appropriate now to have Adam on that committee.
So after you reach out to find out we need to then establish that committee and
Right.
pursue that. And people with expertise in the area, I don't have it. So I shouldn't be on it, but certainly think Adam would be. And I like the suggestions that you came up with on who was originally on it. Try to replicate it as much as we can.
I know we're a member of the NHCCM, which is New Hampshire Coalition of Community Media, and I believe that they have some resources available. I think there's a pro bono attorney that will look over things. They're not going to be part of negotiations, but that will look over, that specifically deals with this.
The other thing too is that these are public documents, so we might as well just see who renewed theirs in the last year or two, and just, hey, I'd like to get a copy of yours and see what's in them. Because, I mean, it's
Good
why
Bedford.
reinvent the wheel here, folks?
We did that last time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now we've got our own, from just 5 years ago as
Right,
well.
yeah.
So we can say, what did they do differently from last time and compare it to ours, and this
Well, if
should
I'm
be.
not mistaken, this is, how do I say it? Comcast, typically, they have an incentive to renew, and they often will try to give an incentive to the community through upgrades and things of that nature to get that renewal, if I'm not, is that a fair enough statement?
I don't know that we
Didn't they
need
do
to
something last time that they did some things in terms of like fiber optic? I thought they
Yes,
did.
fiber optic drops.
Fiber optic drops, and that was their contribution
Yep.
to.
That might have had something to do with the 03102 issue.
It should have been part of the franchise thing. If it wasn't part of it, it should have been part of it. But, because that's a pretty staple thing. So if Comcast gave that up as,
Yeah.
because of this, that was,
Yeah.
We
That was
may not want
Comcast.
to talk too much publicly
Yes,
about
right.
negotiations.
Right, I get that.
All right, is that everything from your side, Neil?
Yes.
Okay. Gary, there's nobody here from the school, so,
Is that an issue that we should, whether, if it's not Gary, it's somebody else? I mean, is there a need to have someone from the school on this committee?
well, I'll tell you, I think.
I've been here and,
that's when it was set up, so he's listed.
right.
I would like to see it. I'll tell you a good example of why we should have had maybe somebody from the school there. The project that's going on at the school right now with the drainage, the fiber optic drops that go out to the football field and the softball field are no longer there, not right now. They pulled them. And I found out about it after the fact. Would have been kind of nice to know that was happening. And I guess publicly to the cable committee, it would have been a good idea. But they told me about it afterwards. And they're planning on reinstalling them and putting them back after the drainage project is all done, but
Who pays for it?
They do.
School does.
It's part of the
It's part of the
project.
thing.
Who knew that could have told you about it and knew that you would want to know?
administration.
So-
If they knew. You know, a lot of times.
They might not
Yeah.
have.
That's what I'm
until
saying, is it
happened.
might be one of those where,
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, there's so many things going on. You're like, oh yeah, we have a fiber optic. You know, because I remember when they were marking
Right.
the softball field, and they were putting, dig safers, and I'm like, what is going on?
Yeah, what's
here?
under there?
But people don't realize that there's utilities like all over the place back there.
Yeah,
Well, that's what I said when I first saw the little flags
Yeah.
out there.
Yeah, there's a good chance they didn't know, but I think they had an inkling that they were gonna have to do that as part of the project, because they
Yeah.
knew where those conduits were, because it was pretty fresh. But, so it would be nice, I guess, to have somebody present from the school,
All right,
so.
and Gary's that member, and he doesn't come to these committees, but he is awfully helpful to you.
I was gonna say, he's
Absolutely.
directly involved
Not-
with Adam.
It's not like he's a no-show when Adam needs to talk
What
with
should
him.
I do? I'm gonna just leave the school report off, and from now on, off the agenda. And if there's something pertains to the school, you can bring it up.
If you wanted to reach out to the principal and say, there is a position here, if you want somebody there.
Oh, that might be, yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
Kind of.
we could do that. Or maybe I reach out to Gary and see if he wants to designate.
I remember seeing him,
Supervisor.
at a couple of meetings, a long time ago.
Yeah, he probably was when the franchise agreement was going through, because I know, actually, the fiber drops he was directly involved with, so.
On one hand, most of what we discussed tonight wouldn't be of any interest at all to Gary. On the other hand, the drone and the GTV, they might think, say,
Right. Right?
it would be worth their while to be here.
All right. Covered a lot tonight already.
I know it.
Lasted a long time. Is there any other new business to come before the board?
I had one quickie, and I'm blindsiding Alan on this one. I talked to Adam, and we talked about equipment, and we have a rivalry with Bedford football, and I'm just trying to, we're not going to meet probably until the fall, but I talked to Adam about the possibility of doing a joint production with Bedford. They have the same camera that we have, and this could be a situation where we're able to do it a live feed, it goes over to their station as well, and, you know, we would still do, you know, say the play-by-play, but we could get camera assistance and really do a top-notch job, but it would require a partnership with Bedford Cable Access to do that, and I don't know if that needs to go through this thing, but I just wanted to, you know, disclose the fact that it could be a nice, it's great that you were, you know, you were able to get some equipment and things of that nature. Any type of partnership that we can get, we've gone away to Bedford and you know, we were able to broadcast there. We don't have great facilities in terms of having multiple schools, you know, film here, but I just wanted to at least be open that it's something that is a possibility of doing like a joint venture with another neighboring town and doing a broadcast. So, whatever that's worth, I just wanted to disclose it, so.
From an administrative standpoint, the only hesitancy I'd see is if it were costing us money, and it's volunteers filming a football game.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like we have to spend $2,000 and Bedford spend $2,000
Yeah, it's
and
not-
get a memorandum of understanding. It's
It's more just the coordination.
just coordinating,
Yeah.
that's just volunteers
That'd be
filming
great.
a football
To
game.
benefit
Both communities,
both communities.
everyone.
And Alan and I, you know, we've done some games where people have asked us, you know,
Yeah.
can you
From the other
live
team.
feed? Right, Merrimack was a good example. So we're hearing more and more of it saying, well, we've got a drop here, so you know, would you guys do the broadcast
Right.
and just feed it right into our? So it's not like it's not going to happen. I suspect it could be next season where we're going to get a request from another school for us to do the broadcast. You know, so
We did that in Nashville.
yeah.
Right.
The color guy, I needed the play-by-play, we
Yeah.
worked together, and it was through both communities.
We did, a couple of years ago, we actually took, Concord and Bedford played each other. They were 1 and 2 in the state. And Goffstown was a Saturday game. This was a Friday game. I actually took the feed over the internet from Bedford, and we aired the game on a Friday night. Wasn't a Goffstown team, but it was of interest to
It's
people.
high school football.
Right.
People- I mean,
Where else do you see it?
Right.
You know,
Oklahoma.
so, Texas maybe, but, so.
All right, before I entertain a motion to adjourn, when we set up to going into every 3 months for meetings, our next one would now have been scheduled for next month, which is the 12th of July. Probably too soon. Our next one after that was, this is also as needed, would be October 11th. Is everybody good enough for October 11th unless we need a meeting in between? Because it's written now as needed, every 3 months.
Potentially, you could do September if you wanted to have people look at
Ooh,
the
that's-
policy sooner.
Right.
But other than that,
I am, I don't know, this whole thing with the drones, is that something that, and I say that only because, I mean, I don't know, were we ever thinking about doing it for a type of sporting event? Because then if you were, then October and November, you'd want to have that thing up
Season's
in
over.
here.
What, can I, just a quick, what is a timeline for a certification? Like, how long do you have to study and take the test and?
I don't know, I think I could do it pretty quick.
In a week?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, so we're not, okay.
No, but my point is that it's very, very conceivable that in a couple of weeks, he could have this certification,
Certification, sure.
okay? That gets it, you know, so that means, now you're in July, we don't get back together again, and technically, if we did approve a policy, and when it went before the selectmen, a drone could be in use by the fall, but yet, if we don't act, then,
if it's a town policy, this committee doesn't have to have anything to do
I
with it.
understand that,
And-
but no one's pushing that right now.
Well,
Is
the
it?
town administrator likes the idea. So there's the potential that they could put a town drone policy with this wording saying GTV only, because GTV would be the only one to have one.
And does the
So it's
town-
possible that we could do this without having another meeting, is what I'm
Well,
getting
my,
at.
my point is this, is that if that is the case, great. If it's a situation where we need to get together so that it could be used in the fall, if it's progressing that way, then that's one of the meetings that we call.
Right,
Yeah, we could do that anytime.
Does town currently own a drone?
no.
No.
What's the turnaround, or what's the purchase order timeline?
Probably have a drone here in 2 days.
Yeah.
Oh, so, okay, so there's not a lot of red tape here.
But
So
Alan,
once he passes the test, if we want a drone, And the
Right.
town administrator grants his wishes.
The delay would probably be a week and a half of making sure that the selectmen approve the drone policy, you know, and.
But you're talking about pumpkin regatta, there's a lot of things
Oh,
that
sure,
happen
yeah.
in the fall that you could use this thing for. Plus, we've got a pretty big road project going on. I mean, I could see why,
I've already talked to our Public Works Director, and they're thrilled with the idea of having a
Right.
drone.
right.
I think they would benefit from it quite a
Oh,
bit.
yeah.
DPW would, yeah.
Well, just like you said, when they wanted to change the traffic pattern of the high school, I mean, that thing would have been like perfect. Show people in an aerial way, here's the new traffic pattern, you know? I mean, it's perfect.
Yes.
Well, I recently hooked Adam up with some aerial photography, so he
Maybe a
can,
little better, yeah.
he can look at that as well.
Yeah.
And
Okay, so that brings me back to the question, are we gonna schedule the next meeting for October 11th, or?
Why don't you go ahead and schedule it as planned,
And
as
then-
quarterly, and then if you need to call.
That
a
was what I was
meeting-
trying to do, is still keep it on that quarterly basis.
Yep.
And then as needed,
That's fine.
because that's the way we
If we can get
decided,
three
that's
members
the way it's
together.
written now. Okay, we'll go with that. Now I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
A motion to adjourn.
Michael, Barbara, second.
Second.
Barbara, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion to adjourn, 5:00 at 19.